So before we continue on with our overview of specific ethical systems, we want to take a short break and take a look at a review of general categories of ethics. Now, with any ethical system, the goal is to use the tenets, use the rules, use the principles of that system to determine the appropriateness of an action. Should you act in a certain way or should you not? Is this action proper or is it improper? Is it right or is it wrong? And so as we're talking about this, we're focusing in on making a decision. Should we be acting and how should we be acting? But in addition to that, we've also got the motivation. And so what is the reason that we're going to be taking that action? And then finally, what is going to be the outcome, the result, or the consequence of that action? And so oftentimes individuals think about, focusing on the action or focusing in on the consequence, but we can also consider the motivation. And I've got this as a circle here because in reality, the motivation is going to be considered a byproduct then of the action and the consequence. And so you could start basically at any point on the circle and continue moving on. And so oftentimes, just simply think about the role of procrastination. Procrastination is an inability to act for a variety of reasons. And often the focus has been on motivation, lack of wanting to do that. But in reality, if we can start acting, start building some consequences, start building some good results or momentum, that is going to add to the motivation and keep things going forward. And therefore, the goal of any ethical system is going to be to provide input onto this cycle and help determine what is the appropriate way to act. And so if we take a look at this in a little bit greater detail, the motivation is basically why are you doing something? The action is what are you going to do? And then finally, the consequence is what is that result of what it is that you're going to be doing. And again, as a cycle, this then is going to feed into this result is going to feed into why are you doing the next thing? Why are you doing something else or something in addition to what you did originally? So if we're taking a look at these different categories of ethical systems, what we can see is that different ethical systems are going to focus on different aspects of this circle. And so virtue ethics, which we'll cover within another video series, are going to be focusing in on the motivation. Deontology or deontological ethical systems are going to focus in on the action. And so the rightness or wrongness, the appropriateness or inappropriateness of the act solely based on the act or the action itself. And that deontology then is going to be contrasted with teleology. Teleology are going to be, or teleological systems are going to be those systems that are focused in on the consequences or the results of the action. And so for a teleological view, the ethicalness, the appropriateness of an action is going to be determined by is it a good outcome or is it a bad outcome? And so we can use this information then to kind of determine different ethical systems focused on different aspects of this cycle. So in deontology, is focused on the act. Deontology is coming from the root word deon, Greek for duty or obligation. And so for a deontologist, their ethical system is going to be focused on the appropriateness or inappropriateness, the rightness or wrongness of the intrinsic value of the actions. And so is there value, is there appropriateness in the act itself? And so for a non-consequentialist, this is going to be not dependent upon the outcome of the action. A deontologist is focused on the act, not on the outcome itself. Now, a problem with this system is that it tends to be very rigid and very objective. And therefore, that duty then is going to be dictating what is the appropriateness, and it's going to be dictating what that action should be. Now, in contrast with the deontologists, the teleologists are going to be focused on the outcome. They're going to be focused on the result, on the consequence. Now, the term teleology comes from the root word telos, the Greek for goal-directed. And so for somebody practicing an ethical system with teleology, they're going to be focused on the appropriateness or inappropriateness of an action, the rightness or wrongness of the action, by focusing on the appropriateness of the consequences, the appropriateness of the outcome. And so by focusing in on the consequences, this could be viewed also as a consequentialist argument. A consequentialist ethical theory or consequential argument is going to be dependent upon the rightness or wrongness of the outcome of the action, on the result of what we're looking at. Now, like there were problems with deontology being rigid and rule-oriented, teleology is going to have problems in that we're going to have a very difficult time accurately predicting what are going to be the consequences of the action. There are often going to be unforeseen consequences. We can predict, probably what's likely to happen, but what other things could possibly happen. And that makes it very difficult in determining what is the appropriateness of the act if we're not able to accurately determine what is going to be that consequence. And then finally, the virtue ethics, virtual theories of ethics, are going to be focused on the motivation. They're going to be focused on the moral character of that individual. And so less focused on the action, less focused on the outcome. They're going to be determining whether that individual is acting morally under this, in this situation. They're choosing to act morally in their action and consequences. Now, again, problems associated with this is that these virtue ethics don't provide guidance on how to behave. And therefore, two virtuous people or two people that are acting morally can act oppositely given the same situation based on their own individual moral character. And so again, we've got these different ways of kind of grouping together ethical systems focused on whether we're looking at the motivation, the action, or the consequence, the result of that action. And therefore, these different ethical systems are going to look at these different situations slightly differently. As always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you and have a great week.